kind of just want to start off with something really simple, and I just want to hear about the genesis of these projects for you. So obviously we've got Anna is the screenwriter of Stronghold and Meghann is the director. And so, how did that project begin? And how did you work together as time went on?
It's been forever because we did a really short a long time ago together that came together like that, like in a minute. Mm-hmm. And then we knew we wanted to work together again. And so we were looking at different projects. I was on sabbatical. I wrote a TV pilot called The Ward. And we were going to do something with that, maybe make it into a web series, something, and just trying to wrap our heads around it. And we decided to take 2 characters from that piece. And as we started, we talked a ton, back and forth. She's the best note giver on the planet, right? We just kind of have a really good synergy for storytelling. And so eventually it became this. They're no longer part, the ward was part of a mental health facility for teens, right? It was based on some of my own kids' experiences. And so we took a child from there and we took the woman who was kind of running that place and we located it slightly different. But it was kind of like if this woman didn't show up or the mom didn't show up. So we decided to make it a short, and now as a proof of concept for a larger piece, although we have to, that's already in the works 1,000 different ways. So that's kind of where it came from.
Cool. And you always knew that, like, you came in with the writing and it was just like, if Meghann's helping me out here, Meghann's going to direct.
Oh, this was always a project with Meg, 100%. You know, like, especially once we got to, like, we're going to make this piece together, right? The ward was kind of all over the place, which I love, but it's not the same story necessarily. Mm-hmm. So when we did this is our story for sure. Like, there was,
Yeah, cool. And Shayna, how about you? How did this project start? Because I know you've got a longer timeline because COVID got in your way.
Yeah, but I wrote the script long before COVID. I had actually wrote this script at the same time as I wrote Quiver, which is a Project Blue Light that I shot a long time ago. So this script now is 10 years old. And both of those scripts played with the notion of desire and this idea of kind of waking up after a state of grief. Mm-hmm. And so there's some linkages there, but very different in their execution. And then when I went to film this, the script actually was so kind of foreign to me that I had to really approach it in a radically different way. I had a different script that I was going to film as a Project Blue Light. I was working with an actor whose name y'all would know if I would say it, which I'm not gonna.
Robert De Niro.
How did you know? And it became evident that I really couldn't make that film. And so I was like, well, I dusted off Tensile Strength of Air, and I was like, well, I could make this. And reapplied the next year for the grant. And so the film was approved in 2019 for production.
19.
Yeah, and was delayed for 2 years.
Wow.
And filmed during the height of COVID. We had to have a COVID compliance officer. It was in kind of, production had kind of gone back to normal-ish, and then there was an uptick in COVID cases in the spring, and so we had full COVID protocols.
Oh yeah.
So I had to do video auditions for the first time ever in my life, which was hard.
Yeah. But you did pretty well.
I did great.
I think you did pretty well. Something about that video. I mean, now. You mentioned grief being something that started the film for you, and I kind of think about how that applies to both films, like grief and loss, or not getting something that you should have, but also maybe even witnessing loss, like, because our main character in Tensile Strength of Air seems to witness a suicide, but then she can't quite get what she is desiring and stuff, and so I'm adding that in now to these 2 big topics that I think we can all talk about, and I'll just have you respond. And one is like motherhood and parenting and care. And then also at the same time, this feeling of being overwhelmed. Also another synonym for motherhood and parenting and care.
Yeah.
And there's even a moment in Stronghold where when she's on the phone and she's like, you know what, maybe I'll take you to Iowa. And the kid's like, but I got to wait for my mom. And you're like, that's kind of overwhelming that these two choices are simultaneous and they exist at the same time. And neither one of them is great. And neither one of them is bad. And it's actually really sweet, you know, like, and you're just like, it's a decision paralysis type of overwhelm, but also just kind of being lost between those layers. And I'm wondering if you can talk about, I mean, that's a big mess to respond to, but
a lot.
Something in there.
Yeah, I mean, Anna and I are both well, we're all moms here, you know what I mean? But I have just also to kind of tack on to the last question you have. I love Anna's writing. The characters she creates are so deep. I've been reading her scripts and her, limited series forever, and I've been wanting to make something where I can go really deep into these people, people that she creates. And we took about a year and a half to create Stronghold based off of kind of, like she said. But I think the biggest thing with making Stronghold, it's just like it's an everyday, this is a small blip in this little boy's life, but it is such a defining moment that is going to probably define him for the rest of his life. And I think when we finally got this script and we got it to where we liked it, I realized that, I mean, I'm a teacher, I'm a person, I'm a parent. It's like you always are going through life going, is there a moment that is defining who you are? And who I am and all that. And I'm like, oh my God, this is that might be a small moment that we're watching, but it is such a huge, huge thing. So when I watched this or when we made this, I kept thinking, who is Leo now? Like if it's 15 years from now, you know what I mean? Like, so it was like, it's just creating human moments and trying to realize that we're all kind of made up of these little moments in life and these decisions. And it was real. Like we talked a long time about the ending. Like we didn't necessarily see eye to eye on the ending.
We're not sure where she goes after this.
Yeah. So, but I really pushed for the realism that she wanted to save him, but she realized just taking him to Iowa is not going to save him, you know? And that
'Cause what's next?
What's next?
Yeah.
And so
I think she drops him off and goes back and gets him, just to let you know.
Well, that's the feature that we're making. So yeah, but I'm sorry if I don't know if I answered your question.
But I love that because it's not about the ending. It's about the moment, like
It's
you
about the
said,
moment.
that decision process. What is this? Maybe like 2 hours or something of real life time on the
It's
screen
just
in
a
15
snapshot,
minutes.
yeah.
It's just a really short period of time, and that's a really interesting link to Shayna's film, where like the moment that we're actually stuck in is the aftermath of what she witnesses, and then we dive into 15 minutes of all of her feelings, regrets, overlapping wants and desires and stuff. So yeah, I wonder if you want to add to this topic of motherhood and overwhelm.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely a central theme in the film, in the creation of the film. And it was interesting because when I wrote it, my children were small. And then when I filmed it, they were teenagers, one tween, one teen. And that's a very different relationship, right? And the motherhood, so really the work that I'm focused on now is about mothers and daughters. And this is pretty abstract about mothers and daughters, but that's like a central theme in there, and it links to the work that I've made around this film as well.
Yeah. Another question I have for both of you, we kind of pass this down. I would like to talk about editing and the process of editing, and that can be like, technically, like how do you prepare the files for your editor and who edits it and how they do and what's the back and forth. But really it's, how do you get this story across, and you're already two minds coming together from the starting point. Like, are there editing decisions you feel like you were making really early on that then you carried all the way through? Like, this cut is going to make the film, or like the way that she walks into that bar, it has to be in this pace? Or are there parts of it that you kind of like discovered in the editing room with Savas that made it what it is?
You know, we're definitely talking about Savas over there in just a second, because he's the editor and he's the brain. I mean, like, he's just brilliant editor. But it really started very early. Autumn English is an amazing, now she's an alumni, but she was a student I worked with very early on. We did a little bit of boarding and all that kind of stuff, like probably 6 months before we even went into production. And then Keegan Dufty is out there, the tallest editor you've ever seen. He was on set and the nicest person, but he was taking the footage because we only had 4 days of shooting, right? Mm-hmm. And so we had to see if some of these shots were hooking up and if they were working. And so I remember he did an assembly cut, which was a 27-minute assembly cut, which was all there, and it helped the story. And if we didn't have that, I think once we handed it off to Savas and figured out where we could, find our story. So it was such a process, Mm-hmm. And Savas, we worked together. Savas, how long did we work together? Long time? Long time. But it's so funny. I just have to tell because I love working with Savas. This is the second movie I've worked on it with him. And we're opposite schedules people. Like, I'm morning and he's night. So we'd make a joke that my creative energy comes in the morning. Like, I'm just way too crazy for him. Like, when he jumps online at 1 PM, I'm like, and then I'm going to bed when all of a sudden his creative, so, we kind of would overlap. Like, I don't know, but it worked really well. I love working with him. He comes with so many great ideas. He has to sit and think with it while I have to come and go, la, 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 let's try this. You know what I mean? So we kind of yin and yang, and it worked really well.
I think, too, to add to that, too, watching Meg work, I have to say, the editing process is painful to me. I mean, it's those things where you're like, you put stuff together and you're like, oh my God, I hate this film, and then eventually you fall back in love with it again. And Meg's ability to bring a team together under that really stressful point when things aren't working, or you're not sure if it's going to work, or we missed these shots, what are we going to do, right? And everybody who has different thoughts and stuff, and she's very collaborative, very open. And I mean, from the get-go, like bringing Autumn in, but also you and Scott going out.
I was just going to say Scott. Yeah.
I mean, you walked through all the spaces, and you both had it in your head walking on set every day.
Well, I pretty much shoot all my films with an amazing DP. His name's Scott Thiel out there, and he is an editor, even if you wouldn't say that. Like, he can edit the shots together while we're talking.
In his head.
Yeah. I have never actually experienced somebody like as brilliant as how he can put the shots together. And somehow he gets it before sometimes I get it. I'm like, oh yeah, we could do, so he's an amazing collaborator. But it is hard. Editing is really hard. And this should go out to everybody that are in the middle of their films or whatnot. You go through a total emotional roller coaster where you say, I don't have it. I don't have a film. I'm quitting. This is the worst. I need a drink or a big bowl of ice cream. I don't know what I need. And then, but you got to stick with it. And it's like you're got your boots on and you're in mud and you lost a boot back there. You got to go back for it. And you come back and somehow you get to a point you're like, well, no, this is working now. You know what I mean? And you chiseled that and then you go back. So I guess, I don't know, you guys probably already know that, but you have to go through all those stages of grief and then come out, and luckily hopefully you find it.
Lots of denial.
There's a lot of denial, but you just can't give up. And you have to have really good team members and collaborators to work with.
Right. And Shayna, you worked with an editor that I have also taken notes from, Ward Crockett.
Yeah.
Who I was pretty much done with my film, and he's just like, take out this seems to repeat, do that. And I was like, oh my God, like these little magic band-aids. But your film is so sculptural, and so it follows emotion. I love how the cuts follow the look on her face, and then we just go into another world, but we don't really lose track, right? Especially now that I've seen it twice, I'm just like, this is so smart. And like, even if I felt like I fell behind at any point, if you watch it again, it's like this puzzle really reveals itself. And I'm curious, like, how you saw that in the early stages and then how it was developed as you went along.
So Ward and I have known each other and worked together in many, many different capacities. And he's a brilliant filmmaker as well as being a brilliant editor. And Ward is like, I can talk about Ward and Ward's editing and the gifts he gave the film. But he also was the central hub of post-production. So, you know, he knew my work well, and he knows how I write, he knows how I think, he can kind of anticipate how things are supposed to go together, and then if something isn't working, he also is able to craft a solution to it that is in line with who I am as a filmmaker, because he just, like, we know each other well. And then Ward also, you know, it's such a technically complex film. And so Ward and Brian, in the early stages, and then Ward and Kevin, and then Ward and Bob.
Totally,
so
yeah.
like visual effects, Brian Andrews, and then Kevin Cagnolati, sound, and Bob Sliga, colorist. Ward is like the central hub, making sure that the rhythms of their work function in the overall rhythm of the film as a whole.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited to introduce Jessica to Ward, because Ward knows her very well, and Jessica's like, who are you? I've never seen him before. So.
Well, it's hard not to think about it like music or something. Like if you're just like, okay, let's do a Ramones cover. You get someone on drums, and that starts it, and everybody else can follow, and that's sort of like telling a story, right? Like where you're like, these are the beats, and it will play like a Ramones song. It's easy, it's poppy, there's a structure, right? But then when you're making like a John Cage piece or like some experimental piece of music, and you have these different players, these different instruments, it really could go in so many directions. But you think about these little, you know, yeah, like I like the way you talked about the little duos that kind of help guide it and shape it, and then all to the tune of the ultimate, you know, your lead sax, I think. Right? No, alto sax. Let's talk a little bit about your relationship with directing actors. And obviously one thing that stands out with your film is that you had a young person in your film, and they are unruly and very hard to work with. But actually, I mean, even if they have a lot of experience, there's only so much experience because of their age, right? Unless they were acting as babies, right? And they'd even remember it. So what was that like? How old was London at the time?
London, how old were you?
You 11?
You were 11? Okay.
So how did you, even before how did you come to cast London? And then even before, like when you were getting started, like what were some of the things you prepared yourself with? Like how I'm going to work with this young person on the spot. And then I would love to ask London what you learned about acting from working on this. You can shout that out later, but let's start with.
Well, I think first and foremost, almost the most important thing was the fact that Beth Day, said she'd do this movie. She is, was the casting director, and our boys happen to be best friends. They're in 4th grade together, and she just happens to live in my neighborhood. I just met her, and it's like, I mean, I don't know. I'm going to brag about you, Beth. Have you guys do you know who Baz Luhrmann is? Yeah. Okay. Do you know that movie Elvis? Yeah. You know who might have cast that movie? Yeah. I mean, like, she was on the casting team, and she's done a lot of movies besides that, but she just happens to live in my neighborhood, and our boys are best friends. So it's like, it was such a gift. And I remember taking her out to Panera. I'm in the SIP club if you're not, so I can get free drinks.
I just met a producer at Panera last week.
Were you? Yeah. Anyway, I remember when she said yes to be on the project. She was one of the first, and it was just like I could take a deep breath. And she found London, she found Jamie, she found all these amazing actors, and I mean, she would, Beth, how many would you give me, like, for each character? It was a range, right?
Right. I mean, I tried not to overwhelm you. I tried to give you, between like 5 and 10 people to look at. A little bit more, I think, with Leo, because you have to kind of cast a wider net when it comes to kiddos, I believe. But yeah.
But she was going through, you were going through like hundreds of, so she cast the movie at first, and then she would bring, and then we'd talk about it, and we'd have deep conversations.
Yeah.
And I got all my first choices. I mean, we would talk about it too. I would send it, and Joe, like.
Yeah, I mean, the three of us would talk a lot. It was really funny because some of them, The one, Shelley, who plays Shelley, I think we found it like that. Like we were like, yeah, went to
Angela
her meeting.
Morris, yeah.
And but every time we found the person, she wouldn't say like who she liked. We wouldn't share them with each other, right? And so, and it was we were all like in sync. I mean, when London came across, it was like no brainer. So I think that part of the thing too of like finding that person not only fits it, but like Meg would direct them too when you go do the callbacks, right? And you'd be able for them to take direction and things like that. So, but it was really interesting to see a team just be that kind of in sync with one another. So I think it was in some ways a lot of work for you two, Beth and Meg. But once you came to us.
Yeah, we worked for months before the movie was cast. And we worked with SAG, and I mean, I fell in love with London. I had to do a little work, London. Remember to get you? Because London was tied to a play at the same time as we were shooting, so we had to do a little fancy for it. I have to thank Jen, London's mom. We did a lot of talking. I was in the Panera parking lot, I remember, and I talked to you for like an hour. It was like, I don't know, it all connects back to Panera. Yeah. But I remember sitting in my car and you called and I was like,
Do you feel like there were any particular approaches or adjustments or directions that were really helpful for you with working with London, or ways that you communicated?
I knew I wanted to do a project like this, and I knew that was one of the push. That was when we were writing this, or when she was writing the script and we were working together. It was like I wanted to work with a child. I think being a mom and trying to, I see my kids have big emotions, and I wanted to be able to, like, would there be a way that we could figure out how to showcase them, like, and have somebody. I wanted to try to pull that out and just, get it on screen. But this was such a quiet, emotional film, and London's, what do you call it, Beth? Audition was just, we both felt it when we saw it, it was hands down. And then have you guys, obviously, when somebody tells you can't have something, you want it 10 times more. Yeah. And I was like, oh God, when and so London auditions, and then all of a sudden, actually, so we selected him, and then you said you couldn't do it, and I think I was like, I can't make this movie. I have to have London. Yeah.
Well, I think you too.
Yeah, you remember it, yeah.
And I think you too, you went in, I think this may be also from someone who works in the hybrid animation thing. You knew what you wanted to see on screen, right? And so, and thankfully, London was up for the oh my gosh, there was one night that because London's, a child actor, and it was like seconds we were allowed to have London on set, and we're like, okay, one more time, and like people counting down, you're like, okay, stop, and got the take that Meg wanted right then. But it was, you had stamina, you had lots of stamina.
But London, you couldn't shake London. But I've been working at like Nickelodeon and Sesame Street for many, many years, and so I've been working with kids, but I'd never worked in a dramatic fashion. I'm always trying to make people laugh and do all that kind of stuff, and I've always just wanted to push that way. And so, I appreciate being able to do it.
And then Shayna, maybe specifically with Jessica, because like I said, you learned so much about how she feels and what's going on through her facial expressions and through quiet. Yeah. I'm curious, like, how does that get directed, or what kind of conversations were you having to help build that character with her?
Well, it goes back to the casting as well, because we were having trouble casting the film, and then Jessica read for us, and my producer Sam and I were both like, done.
Yeah.
Like, it's that, like, we need Jessica. Like, Jessica is this film. And, the three leads came together very quickly. Once we knew we had our lead in Jessica. And thankfully everything worked out, and she signed on. We found the other two, Vic Missoni and Phyllis Griffin. Phyllis Griffin is professor at the theater school.
And she's the older woman at the end. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, Jessica and I, just kind of reinvigorated my enthusiasm for this film that was old. and she infused it with something brand new. And she's, we never had a conversation about age, but she's like 20 years younger than the character as written.
Mm-hmm.
And it, from the initial audition, didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, it was like, oh, that was arbitrary. I didn't actually need that. That was something that was stuck in my head that is actually not necessary for this character or for this person. And we talked a lot about invisibility and what that means for women. And, at the time she was not a mother, but we talked about being overwhelmed, being busy, being pulled in many different directions, which as an artist, she can relate to that, the day job and the creative ambition, which is also part of the character's conflict as well. So we also had intimacy coordination, which are separate types of rehearsals. And they're very okay, it's like learning dance steps, and it's really awkward. And I think we had 2 of them, and it's not acting. It's like learning where to put your elbow, right? And how far away you're standing from the other person. And, so we had these 2 mechanical, really kind of clunky rehearsals for that. And then we got on set, and, we had to have a closed set for intimacy scenes. But both of them inhabited the characters. So at the moment that the camera was on them, the choreography just, it flowed. It was effortless. And they were these characters in this strange netherworld that doesn't really exist. And it was quite beautiful. And Victor is a dancer. And one of my favorite parts of the film is when I told him, we had never rehearsed this, but I told him to just start dancing with her. And so Jessica wasn't expecting that at all.
It does feel really authentic.
It is such a beautiful moment. And it goes on for a lot longer. Like, we have a lot of footage of that dance, and it's just beautiful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really great. Just to talk a little bit about the structure of these films and, how they were made or how they came from. Can you talk a little bit more about the relationship of this to a TV series, if possible? Because I remember when I saw almost finished cut, and I gave a couple notes. It was really close to the end. It was pretty tight. And my first reaction was this would be such a good TV show. And Meghann was like, I know. We were going there. But what is that, do you think? And what about it do you think makes it a pilot type show, or what, what's the difference between a TV show and a short film?
Well, it is a proof of concept now, right? And so part of it is that for television, your characters have to be incredibly deep and complicated, right? Not that they don't for film, but there's another world. You have to build out the world. So I think the fun part about this is we had a world built for these characters, right? In many ways, although they tweaked a bit we knew even in the television series that our lead actress,
Aura Jones?
It's Aura, but what's the character?
Fran.
Fran had already had an estranged relationship with a daughter she had given up a long time ago and was going to, just got back into her life, and that Angela, right, or Shelley, the mom, isn't coming to pick this kid back up, or the complication of this kid. Who doesn't have a stable home, and what is that like, right? And so we had built these worlds already. So when we plucked them and put them in another thing, that background was there, right? Oddly, now we're using it more for a film than we are a television series right now, only because we feel that the world is more streamlined, you know. And I think I talk with my students a lot about determining what's a television series and what is a film, right? And this is a linear story, a particular story about this child that we want to tell, right? And this relationship between these two humans. But when we took it from a television series, it's really about the world inside this place, right? And we could do it. It could be a group home. Right now, we have it as a mental health facility in the television series. So I think it really, you know, I think part of it that lends itself to it is because the characters were essentially built in a larger world, right? But one thing I did want to add on something Shayna had said before too, and I want to give a shout out to people who are working with kids or intimacy thing. Your camera team is so essential to making that work because there's a trust that has to be there and a relationship that has to be there too. I just, you know, Scott's team that were like in those shots when you're this close up to those actors and they're doing it again and again and crying and whatever. And like in the between takes, they're like, hey, are you okay? Or, you know, there's a softness to them. But I wanted to throw that out because I think there's a real gift for folks who are doing that too. So anyway, but that's as far as television series and structure.
As a woman who's been a DP or a camera operator, I have had actors look me in the face and say, you're the only one who's allowed to shoot this next shot or touch the camera for this or be, because sometimes you have to like straddle an actor or whatever.
Yes.
And like they look around and it's just a bunch of guys and it'll be a character who's just like, or an actor who's just like, only you, Lori. And they'll be like, but Robert can. And I'm like, they'll be like, nope, only Lori. And I'm like,
absolutely.
okay. Yeah, and building that relationship is so important. And Shayna, I'm really curious about, because in speaking structurally about creating this, you were teaching while you were making this movie, right? It's like literally a class. You can see really well production designed that it's CineSpace, but actually the first time I watched it, I really wasn't seeing the CineSpace rooms. Watching it here and it's bigger, I was like, oh yeah, duh, that's the CineSpace bar. Like I just wasn't thinking because I was looking at the characters, right? So you're in a familiar space, you're in a space where you teach and you're actually teaching while you're doing it. Could you say a little bit about what that, you know, is that exciting, difficult? I'm sure it's all things, but.
No, it's the hardest thing I've ever had to do. This film was really challenging in so many ways.
Yeah.
And, you know, this film was made during COVID. It's a COVID film. And so I had made 3 blue light films before this. And usually on a project blue light film, you've got upper level students who have tons and tons of set experience. And there had been 0 production at DePaul.
Oh, yeah.
And 4 quarters of online film school. And this was the crew population. And so I had this range of students who, some of them had only made production 1 films. Some of them had eked out somehow other set experiences, which was really, really hard. And on a film, so students with less experience on a film that is so incredibly technical. Like there's location shooting, there was CineSpace, it was shot during the quarter, so they were in school, they were in classes. We shot on using the LED wall. We had that window that she goes out of. That's a second set that had like we had to move the window from one set to the other. And these students I cannot express how incredible they were to have gone from, gee, I really wish I were going to film school in person and could be on a set, to this size set with a huge crew and to pull this off.
Yeah.
And
that's wild.
No one's going to look at this film and go, "Lo, a bunch of students worked on that." They're going to go, "Wow, what a crew."
Yeah, that's great. That's really great to hear. Okay, do we have any questions over there? I'm looking and I don't see the light. Oh, hi. Hey, welcome.
Thank you. That's very nice. Hello. Thank you for sharing your films with us. My name's Sam. I'm a third-year BFA here in directing. And I wanted to ask, you know, in filmmaking, I feel like you make discoveries, both like regarding the craft of it and like kind of personal connections to story through script analysis and rehearsal and that kind of like um, softer work. So I was wondering if you experienced both for Shayna and Meg, if you experienced these discoveries while directing these films and kind of what they were.
That's a wonderful question. Can I?
Bill.
So I script analysis is one of the most beautiful parts of directing a film, and it's the director's pre-production. It's where you figure out your movie, and you can't. So I only direct films that I write, but I don't know what I've written after I've written it. I don't know how to direct it, and so you need that discovery period, that exploration period, to get to know your film, your script in a different way. And then each additional stage when you bring people in is a new way of being able to explore, because those collaborators bring something with them that you can't imagine. They expand your vision, and they help you visualize things that are tricky and difficult, and then they also help you figure out how to practically pull it off. And rehearsing too is a really sacred, beautiful space where you're really directing is a lot of indirect work, and when you're rehearsing, you're really exploring character and world and trying to move from one person's idea of the character and your idea of the character, and kind of move them closer together and merge them. And maybe that's why in the film we came up with the merging Jessicas. Yeah, directing is an incredible joy and a real privilege. We don't get to do it nearly as often as we would like.
That's a great point. It's a great question. I think, I don't know, I might have lost the question, but but I have an answer for whatever I think your question is.
But I have something to say.
Yeah, so follow me. So first and foremost, it's my team. It's building, it started with Anna and Joe. My main collaborator is Joe Lyons. He's over there somewhere. Everything starts with there. It's like having this idea. So every time I'd have a meeting with Anna and we'd come up with something, we would always I'd come back and I'd sit with it, and then I'd talk to Joe about it, and then we'd come back. And we would have really amazing meetings, the three of us kind of passing these ideas back. But once, we knew we had our story, it's like, I just keep my fingers crossed that Scott will say yes again. You know what I mean? And he always does, and it's always just a blessing. And production design, Noelle, when she said yes, when Beth said yes. So it's all about they help me see the story that I might miss. And then by all of those meetings, all those Panera meetings where we sit down and we talk about stuff, I learn stuff about my character. Like Scott will say something to me about Leo, and I'm like, oh shit, that's interesting. Or something we'll just, even Noelle, we had coffee, we didn't go to Panera, but yeah, do you remember? Yeah. Culver's, we did go to Culver's. Yeah, right. That was our second date. But yeah, and so I'm building that, but I think also, and then spending time with Jamie. Jamie, do you remember when I came over and I brought all those crazy muumuu dresses that you were going to try on?
Yes.
And yeah, we weren't reading the script, but the whole time we're talking about the character. I'm getting to know her as a person, And I got to tell you, she's the funniest, nicest person in the world. And I just knew I wanted to build that in, even though she's hard. But like her character, it was like I saw just by talking to her, I started to feel like who her character was going to be. And so I guess spending time with the people that you're collaborating with, but also with the actors, I got to give a big shout out to Aura Jones. She was our lead, Fran. Just having a phone call with her, because I know the way that we got her, she was more of like she wouldn't audition, but we just knew that we wanted her. We didn't even have to go through the process. And Beth, pulled out, somehow she got her because she's kind of a big deal. And so it was pretty amazing just to once she signed on, then I could see Fran, like we could start to see Fran and be like, okay, now, and so as we built the puzzle pieces. So it's just talking. It's like sitting in a room, some cases Zoom.
Do you remember any of those specific insights that you got from one of your collaborators that kind of shifted your perspective on the story or anything?
Why does everything revolve around food and drinks with me? But it's like, you remember the burger place we went to, Scott? We did colors. We found the color of the film and the look of the film before we started filming. And like we were bringing up, he had an amazing website. We should probably share that. What's that website, Scott? Okay, well, we'll come up with it, and
it'll be at the bottom of your screen.
Yeah. But he had all these amazing ideas for looks, like in the car, and like all these movies that we've probably seen over the last 30 years. And so we started to kind of piece of what the look of our film would be, and that was.
Can I add an insight from Scott?
Yeah.
None of us, the three of us, didn't have the entire time until he told us London never leaves the car.
Yes.
That we
never
yeah.
realized that.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So there, aha moment. Thanks, Joe. That was Joe.
Yeah, it's a great one.
Great.
The shot deck was you can go like probably shotdeck.com, but it's amazing. You can start pulling the colors and kind of.
Well, I think there's moments too with your actors do things that you're like, oh, got to keep that, right? And I remember when London did this thing when they pulled their leg up and this Meg's like, oh my God, we've got to have that shot. Now it's our poster, it's everything, right? But like that, just letting them organically live, right? Or the connection between Aura and London was magic, right? Mm-hmm. Like they enjoyed each other on set. So they developed that relationship outside of set that they brought in there. There was a safety, I think, inside that car, right? That we weren't privy to because they were spending so much time in there. Everyone else is lighting and doing all this stuff around and they're stuck in the car together, right? Doing stuff. And so I think, and there's magic in those moments.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Do we have another question? Hey.
Thank you. Hi, I have a question for Anne and Meghann. I have always been fascinated to how actors can authentically capture a character. In your case and for Fran specifically, how do you work with them to carry such an intense degree of emotion, and what does that process look like?
Aura, so who played Fran, you could tell she wanted to know the backstory. So all this world building that Anna had created, like the fact that she gave up her daughter, which you guys don't know. She gave up her daughter
when she was young, and she was trying to kind of keep her life together, right? She gave it up, and then she tried to kind of restore her own belief in herself by leading this this group home, right? It was, and her dealing with that guilt, and so she did. She wanted to build her own thing. So, Jamie too. I think when you talked with her, Jamie has a whole backstory for the neighbor, right? Yeah. Like that's on screen for a really short period of time.
Often with my characters, I create little Bibles of like little stories of each person, and then that's basically what we did, and so it helps us when we get into,
When you have a question, right? They have a question, why would I do this? Where am I coming from? Who is Simone to me? How long has it been since I've been there, right? But there's also the thing with casting is 90, what is it? Like Ron Howard says, like casting's like 90% of it, and the rest of your job is just tell them where to go or something, like when you've got the right actors. Aura Jones was way, way, way back when I worked at the Goodman Theater when I was like, waiting tables and doing other things, and Aura was in a play, and I remember what a gracious human she was and how wonderful she was on stage, and that was literally close to 30 years ago, right? 25 years ago, and so when we were looking for folks, right, we were looking through the Steppenwolf catalog of actors, right? We're like, who's a Chicago actor? I'm like, oh my God, Aura Jones, right? And so then we started looking at everything we could find of Aura Jones, and Meg found one, and she's like, she was on a Chicago
It was
Fire
Chicago
Med
Fire
or something.
And actually, Karina, did you work on this too? Joe did. It was the first season, and her son, or she's playing a mom, and her son, an accident happens. And I just remember when I watched it, I was bawling. And when I watched the take again on her reel, I was bawling just by the clip. And I had remembered watching it 10 years ago when they worked on it. I'm guessing you guys.
Because we were looking for a time that she could reach that emotional space, right? On film. And there's a different thing in theater and, and Meg was like, we found it.
Now we have to convince her. Beth, go.
And not to interject as if I have any say in this situation. I remember when I watched that cut and, I had a couple notes and like 2 or 3 of them were like, hold on her longer. Like because it was like, that's good. There's nothing wrong with this cut. But I want to think more about what she's thinking about, and I want to sit with her, which is another like interesting thing, thinking about the way Shayna directed her film, and we see so much of the emotional lead just thinking about the situation, and you see that change on their face because they're great actors. And so like, but it's interesting how it's like casting, and then like it affects the editing too, and how much time we sit with them on the screen. Thanks, Christian.
Thank you.
Thank you. I like how they appear around the
I know,
corner.
right?
I know, they come out of nowhere.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
I have a fun question. As a student of your guys's, what are your guys's teaching philosophies in general, and also when it comes to like having productions where you have students on set? And it kind of goes along to Shayna what you were saying earlier, but like, how do you approach both leading a creative team and also like incorporating your teaching philosophies from the classroom into set experiences that are really fun? I can attest to it being awesome.
Rebecca worked on Stronghold.
Hey.
She's amazing. We're very fortunate to have her on. We didn't do a blue light, and it wasn't necessarily a DePaul production. I think it's like 6 degrees of DePaul, so there was a lot of people that worked on it, like friends,
alums, and
a lot of. It happened to be the SAG strike happening, and then there was the IATSE, the strike. So we did everything by the books. But we were able to get the most amazing crew that usually would be out shooting all these big name stuff, and then we were able to have a few students that wanted to come out with us. And I think, I don't know, like that's a big question. I think there's something about doing and being immersed in something, like giving that experience. We only had a handful of students because the rest were alumni, but like yourself. And your drive and your excitement to be there, like you could see it and you could feel it. Like you brought such an energy to set, and it was like, you may not have done this, 1,000 times like other people have done, but I knew that you wanted to be there. And so it's like, I wanted to give it to you all. I wanted to give you the experience. You know what I mean? And I guess it kind of goes back to the whole collaborative thing. You want to, who do you want on your boat? You know what I mean? And I was like, I knew, right? We did an interview, like on Zoom. I think you were in Florida. I'm having all these memories, but and it's like I could feel your energy, and somebody had given me your name, and it was like we just had 1 or 2 students that
Well, I think you trust that too. Like that probably came from Emily, right? Is my guess.
Emily.
Shout out Emily Schumann, the best.
And I think there's something too about being on set that you've got to remember. We're making movies.
Yeah.
It should be fun, right? What we're doing. We don't have $100 million budget with producers like going down our backs, right? Like if we don't have a generous, open, fun set, what's the point?
Yeah.
And so if there's not joy on that set every day, including the neighbors' kids, Jamie's, neighbors' kids who were all there, for the day that were on the crafty tables and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But even like it was. A DIT who brought a neighbor in to watch the DIT for things going on for the day, right? There's a generosity in that has to be there, or what's the point, right? I feel the same way in the classroom. We're all making movies.
Yeah. So how do you take that experience on production and bring that into the classroom? Incorporate that into your like teaching philosophies for everybody on the couch.
Do you want to answer, or do you know?
I mean, teaching and directing and parenting are all the same thing. They're all the same skill.
It all happens at Panera.
And everything happens at Panera. So you have to kind of figure out, like, you're not a different, one of the great things about being a teacher is you are yourself in the classroom. You're not really playing a role. And as a director, you have to be as vulnerable as you're asking your actors to be. And vulnerability is what connects us to other humans. And so you need to be your authentic self. You need to have boundaries. Directors have boundaries and direct around the boundaries, right? They direct within the boundaries. And that's part of that, keeping people safe. And when people feel good and safe and they can explore, then they learn. And one thing I think that we've kind of lost sight of, that I think a lot about as both a teacher and a parent, is that learning is really uncomfortable. And there are a lot of situations where we are like, oh, what are you talking about? This is outrageous. And those are some of the most powerful and meaningful lessons that you learn. And I feel like I've been teaching for nearly 30 years, and witnessing those epiphanies in students is one of the great gifts of my life. And also, I think, though, that we have kind of, I don't want to play it safe as a teacher or as a filmmaker or as a parent either. Like, I want to keep my people whole, but I want them to have all these great experiences and not shy away from painful, difficult things, because then they don't get the epiphanies, they don't get the deep learning, they don't, to use David Lynch's phrase, catch the big fish. So
I think there's one other thing too to add that I would say. I got the greatest compliment from a student the other day through my son, who's a filmmaker here, right? And they're friends with them, and he said to them, he said, "Your mom, I can tell your mom cares that everybody feels seen," right? And I think that's the thing with filmmaking and teaching filmmaking, is that every single person's authentic voice matters in that classroom. And I'm lucky that I get to teach screenwriting, because, you know, those seeds and those germs, and I push everybody about, why are you telling this? What emotional connection do you have? You know, we as filmmakers have very few things we have to do. We have to keep people entertained, on the edge of their seat. We have to make them feel something and give them a damn good ending, right? An inevitable yet satisfying, you know, surprising ending, right? And I think that to do that, you have to be vulnerable on that page, and you have to be safe, and you matter, right? And I think that if every film student feels that, they walk away being better artists.
Amazing. Thanks, guys.
Although I have to say that once on a student evaluation, one of my students said that I speak about voice too much. I always remember that, where I was like, wait, I've been encouraging you and it's too much? Okay. Be generic, everyone. Don't say what you want to say. Do we have time for one more, or did I lose track? Is there someone there? Is there one more? Is there a person? Yeah, let's squeeze in a question. This will be the last one, and then we'll move on to the reception.
Hi, my name is Paloma, and my question is, how does your support and resources through DePaul affect your creative decisions as a filmmaker?
The reason I can make films is because I'm here at DePaul. I mean, I feel completely supported. This film wasn't necessarily, we had to go outside and do some of this stuff and get our own insurance, because as you can see, if you guys read the student handbook, you can't do driving shots, you can't do that kind of stuff. So we had to step out, and we didn't do a blue light grant. We did get additional funding, like for post and all that kind of stuff, but for shooting, that was us. And so, you know, we asked a lot of favors. We feel very blessed. But just the people that you meet while you're at DePaul, that's a huge resource, right? Like, I don't think I've given a shout out to Kevin Cagnolotti. I don't know if he's here, but he
did sound on both films.
Yeah, and
yeah.
And the team that he pulled together, like the students that worked on and helped him with sound. I mean, like, there's just so many layers. Those are the resources that are so rich. Like meeting the students, meeting the faculty, just like, and them putting their collaborative energy and their touch on this film. I mean, as you saw with the credits, I mean, it was like a minute-long credit. Sorry, guys, but I mean, like, you got to see like what went into this, all the people that contributed. That's the richness. That's the resources. That's what feel blessed with DePaul. If it's not necessarily a monetary, but we're getting that.
Although we did get some.
We did absolutely.
Yeah.
This is a really special environment, and I hope that you as students feel that and see that. I mean, I think a lot of people come here because they're like, CineSpace, so cool. Oh my God, all these cameras, so cool. And yes, those things are really cool, but none of it matters if you don't have the ability to develop your voice, your generic voice as filmmakers. And that's through the classes, that's through connecting with your peers. I love seeing students that I know separately from different places. Like, I find out they're friends and roommates, and this is a place that really fosters creative expression, and not every film school fosters creative expression and collaboration in their faculty, and DePaul does that, and that's something that's rare, and which I found going to conferences like the University Film and Video Association. Every time I've screened a film there, people talk to me about DePaul because the faculty are active and making work that is interesting and beautiful, that we're teaching students on set. And it's just, I think that's really exciting. And it's also really very, very special. And it ties into the university's mission, right?
I think there's something too to add to that you all are creating, like the way we have our network that we keep making films together. You see Brian Andrews, Savas, they're Noel, Kevin, they're everybody's films. Like, we all, work together again and again and again. And like, Brian's got one out there now with Brad, who I've done with something with Brad in the past, and Noel's on that one, and like we're reading scripts for the production. And I think you all are building your network. We tell you that all the time. This is your network. This is your network. And you were talking with somebody else I know from another top 25 film school. I won't say where. Their students make 4 films the entire time they're there, right? In class, they have no access to equipment outside of class, 0. Like they don't do independent productions at all. And so, in a way, DePaul has those resources for you too, in many ways that hopefully you're all connecting and using.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I want to congratulate you all again. And this was the DePaul premiere of both of these films. There are a lot of people here who are seeing this for the first time, even though they worked on it. So that's really exciting. Let's take that energy and enjoy the reception. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Thanks, Lori.